the cloud. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sounds Good to Me, our conversations in sound. My name is Karen Jones, and then we have the lovely Yile Lau in Wellington, New Zealand.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Yile.
Hello, Karen.
How's everything over there across the ocean?
And rainy, which is good. We have not had rain for quite some time. The New Zealand's looking a bit yellow, and so we need some quenching. And
Yeah,
there's even been some forest fires in South Island, so it's like, ooh.
Yay for the rain. Rain, you can come. Please keep coming. It's okay. We had rain actually here in the desert as well, here in Vegas. All of last night, it was lovely going to sleep with the rain. Much needed.
Indeed.
As long as it's
today. Yeah.
Right. As long as it's not overflowing, like flooding, that's when it becomes.
It's like streams.
Ask for a little bit too much rain. Yeah. The perfect amount of rain. So today we were our topic is the truth about frequencies. Hile and I were just having a lovely little chat, and frequencies popped into our conversation, and we were like, well, yeah, why don't we talk about frequencies? Because we had a nice conversation about it. Because frequencies are everywhere. They're everything. Everything has a frequency. Everything.
I love that word if you break it down. I always do this with words. It's like frequency. Like, what do we frequently see? That's right. My input. No, just kidding. Yeah.
No, but I mean, a frequency, literally, they're like waves because they have a rhythm, a vibration, and it's just actually pinpointed. Science has learned to measure frequencies, but frequencies, literally everything has a frequency. All of like taste has a frequency, smell has a frequency, sight, colors have frequencies. It's just like you can just go explore all the various frequencies that are everywhere and in everything. So then the next question is, why is it that certain frequencies are more resonant for us than others? Why does one, like our sensitivity to sound as opposed to someone's sensitivity to color? What is the frequency that someone can plug into, that we can plug into, but it resonates more with us to lean towards sound? All choice, of course, as well, no? Because we could all also take a painting class and be pulled into the colors of paint. You paint though, don't you?
I am exploring that. I'm really enjoying it. And it's funny enough when you said about color and frequencies, because the recent one I did looked like frequency waves, but in color.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that. So that's interesting. What comes out, the expression of that. And then some people, I think it was interesting because the recent one I did I was like, not sure. And so I asked the audience and they loved it. And it's just like, but I guess you won't hear about them. So like, yeah, I don't really like it. But then there will be that. I'm aware of that. Not everything's for everyone. So right. Yeah, what is it that draws us in for some things and not to others?
You know, we had actually spoken about how they have these frequencies that you can listen to on YouTube and on podcasts, and all of these different sound healers who talk about, if you hear this frequency is the frequency of Jesus, and this frequency is the frequency of Solomon, and they have all these different frequencies that you listen to that will give you greater peace or stimulate your liver, or whatever the healer may be touting. But when we were in our sound healing intensive course with Jonathan Goldman a couple of years ago, he had a formula, because he actually was asking similar questions, like how can so many different frequencies work for so many? I mean, do these frequencies work for the same thing every time? And he said that it's really what was his formula? Intention plus frequency or sound?
Frequency plus intention.
equals
It
healing.
was healing.
Right.
He does have some other ones, but I mean, that's interesting because what we were talking about in our catch up, because there's a few posts that go around and about certain frequencies. This is the love frequency, or this is, like you said, the frequency for liver. I went, how do you find that? So I haven't, I'm beginning to research it, and I just find it fascinating. And it's like, well, does everyone's liver have the same frequency, or like how does that work? And I remember Jonathan saying the examples like you can't tell a mother who's singing to their child and saying, you're not singing in the frequency of 528. Sorry, that's just not anything. So it kind of begs the question of like, well, how do those people come up with those specific numbers? And I know there are quite a few modalities that use specific frequencies for organs and bodies. Like, how do they come up with that? And
right.
Does
That's
it work?
Question. Do they go through probably a series of frequencies until they get some kind of reaction? Like maybe they stick electrodes on it or something, and it like pulses or does something. But exactly. I don't know. I think it really is the individual. I really think that, I mean, even when we were doing the exercise where you make a sound in front of a person's body, and then as you go down the body, there'll be a point where your sound will shift. Like it's a different sound. So obviously you must, in the electromagnetic field of a person's body, in their biofield, for those of you who have never heard of what that is, we all emit an electromagnetic frequency, speaking of frequencies. And when you are in this field, apparently there's a lot of healing that can go on. That's why you have a lot of healers that will work in this field. They won't touch you exactly, or they will touch you and they move through your field. So the process of going into the field, making a sound and having the sound shift, there must be something that's going on. Like other people would say, oh, you're changing the sound. No, trust me, we all did this exercise, and there were just certain points where you would stop and you would stay on that sound, and then it would shift again, and then you could move on to the next place in the body.
So guys, so you just reminded me then about with the sound, what I've learned from our course and just reading a few things about, there's that constructive frequencies and destructive ones, where so the principles of entrainment and resonance, that the constructive, I guess, assists the other object to vibrate its normal frequency, whereas the destructive one was the amplitude. So if you match its frequency, but like the opera singer and the glass shattering, that's like matching that frequency but using the volume to shatter it. And that's, I guess, what some people have, researchers has done with cancer cells, and there's studies out there that do that, and that's really interesting. So I'm interested in about how, if anyone knows out there how the research was done about those organ specific ones, and
right,
or do they tune into that specific person? Because it's in medicine already, like in medical procedures, like gamma ray, where they actually can burn tissue and,
yes, they use sound, right? They use sound to explode the kidney stones, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
So they actually have to then measure like that. I wonder if they have to measure for that person rather than this is the frequency for gallstones in general.
Probably not. Because they don't do it with medicine. I doubt that the kidney stone. I think that's where we're going. I think that the use of sound in medicine is going to grow as soon as we get rid of our addiction to the money-hungry pharmaceutical and medical industry. I think that a lot of new techniques will emerge once we don't have the need to, or that need for greed disappear a bit more. Just my interesting point of view, of course. But yeah, I think that even if you just ask the question, just like when we're in the formula that Jonathan talked about, your intention or the request. What's the request? Okay, so what sound can I make for this person that will heal whatever it is that they're going through, or will assist or contribute? And magically enough, it will contribute. I think it is that magical that you can just ask the energy. I know that sounds abstract on many levels, but in when there are magical miracle healings that happen, it's not logical. It's not extremely logical.
Mm.
You know, there's a lot. It's like plugging into a frequency. Voila,
Yeah.
right? So you have people in their lives who want to change their lives, who want to heal, let's say, from some illness, or they want to create more success in their lives. They want to be happier. They would like to not worry so much or be less under stress. Just the request of healing any of those things, you're sending out literally a transmission out into the universe. Hey, we really would like to change this. I don't want to continue to live in this. And they're actually literally asking for another frequency. They're asking for a frequency, let's say, of perfect health, or a frequency of greater joy, or a frequency of more peace. And those frequencies are, I mean, those are the big questions of self-development today, right? How can we change our worlds and plug into those frequencies where we can resonate with, because it's like reaching for something that you're not. You know, how do you get there?
Interesting, yeah, because that's the other thing I was going to mention about, especially if there's two parties involved, where the practitioner and the client thing, and I'm talking from my own experience, I can tell which clients are actually are really asking for change, whereas and it's just that mutual understanding of what is being requested and what the client is ready to receive, and also the practitioner what's ready to be perceived in that situation. Yeah, it's really interesting about what you're saying about frequencies, like, because I've recently been on 2 workshops, nothing to do with sound, but it was just that same principle of like, what is one ready to receive? And sometimes it can feel uncomfortable if like the change they've asked for, it's like, I want this great thing in my life, but they made it so big, like a big jump, that it's like they always have to take baby steps of how and when and how quickly they want to receive that thing that they've asked for. So I guess in terms of frequencies, it's like, too much. Is that too much? Have they made it too much of a jump? Is it comfortable for them to receive that frequency? Because I know for myself that there are certain bowls or frequencies that I find a little bit too much, if that's the word, or too intense.
Right. Yes, like you're not. Yeah, it's like taking a 6-year-old and putting him in high school. It's the frequency. It's just a whole nother level, and highly uncomfortable, and not going to work. Right. I was just reading Joe Dispenza's new book. It's called Becoming Supernatural. And one of the things he talks about is that the brain itself is designed, it's got the programs are designed based on our habits, you know, and we have these clusters of neurological programs. So when you're trying to change that, there's that's like you're going against a wall, because you haven't your neurons aren't even ready for it. That's why baby steps are oftentimes the best way, because then you're like shifting your neurological structure a little bit at a time, so you can finally go, oh. However, and then there are other methods, if people are willing to receive the change, where they will allow a big hike, a big jump. Depends on, you know, our inner worlds are so complex, you know. Even I talk to Gile this way, because when we sit one-on-one with someone and they start telling their story, and they branch off in this direction and branch off in that direction, and you're like, oh my God, it's like looking at a huge puzzle, and they're missing pieces, and the color scheme is awry, and you're like, where do I start? And you make sounds like that, like whoop, 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 whoop.
That's funny. I didn't really, yeah. A sound effective. What do we call it? Can I have a name? I didn't realize I did that. I kind of went, my reactions to things, I'm like, ah! And then they go, oh, that's a funny sound. I went, oh, it really helps me because it's rather than this energy sort of way, it helps
Right.
to acknowledge it.
Right. It helps to move things around a little bit.
Ah.
The beauty of sounds.
Replay.
Awesome. It's just amazing. People don't even know how many sounds that they make that are contributing to helping them day to day to get through life, to get through their lives, to get out of it. So what's really interesting about this whole idea of these structures is that we're habitual beings, and wanting to change something in our lives has become a task because we're so habitual. It's like, because you're like wanting to step into something that you've never done before. And how can you perceive it if every part of your life is structured around your routine? Wake up at the same time every day. You think the same thoughts, you jump into, what you have to do, who you have to talk to, you get on your phone, you look at the news, you grab your coffee, these structures that become so automatic that say, oh, but wait a minute, I want to create this. And yet getting to that from within these very, very defined grooves, if you will, of your reality can appear insane.
So is it familiarity? I know, like I'm hearing you talking with so many different examples running through my head about that initial discomfort. But then ending up really loving it. It's like listening to a new bit of music and you're like, what the is this? And then you kind of like stick around for a while and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's growing on me. And then then you allow it.
Right. But
and I can see that, yeah.
Right.
Allowance. Is that another key component too?
Right. Yes, because once you go into judgment of something, are you creating a coherent energy or an incoherent energy? Is the vibration easy flowing, or is the vibration disturbing? Because once something's disturbing, you won't hear it. You'll turn it off. You'll turn off. It's like you're going into judgment. Same.
So is that a judgment? That's interesting, because then there'll be certain sounds that you've never heard before or new to, but then you think, that's automatically soothing. Yeah, that's interesting. I find that.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we're attacking a very huge topic, frequencies, because we are transmitting frequencies as well. I mean, we're transmitting broadcasts about who we are. As soon as you meet anybody, you're already giving you information that you cannot consciously see, but that information is present. And if you take a moment to just breathe. Oh, I went to a play the other day. Speaking of it, you would have loved this play. It's called Small Mouth Sounds. And it was about a silent retreat. And it was like, oh my God, it's like a slice of my life. And it was beautiful because the actors were basically silent most of the play. And their conversation was in actions and movements and just like we had our silent day. We had a silent day and a full day, which was exhausting and amazing at the same time. When we were in our retreat, but we could make sound, but we were making, toning. So we were making extended sounds, basically, like om or whatever sound you wanted to make, ner, you can make whatever sound you wanted, but we had like groups, and we would tone for an hour, and then we'd be silent for like 2 hours, and then we tone for another hour, and you could continue to tone all day if you wanted to. And then when we were out being silent, we could not, literally, you couldn't talk. It was a big thing for me. That was amazing.
The sound of silence, yeah. It's really quite, and you know, it's interesting about we play with sound, but also that, like you said, there's always frequencies going on. And the workshop I've just been on, which is to do with constellation work, and they call this thing called the morphogenic field, where it reveals what's ready to be revealed. And there's these facilitators, they really allowed like big, for most people were big pauses, but they weren't pauses. He was just allowing the energy. So there's just like big moments of silence before he asked questions or things were said. And they just allow people to just drop into a deeper level, rather than kind of still coming from the mind of, oh, they're blah, 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 this happened. It just, that space to allow those frequencies to really reveal themselves. It was really quite interesting.
Wow. And what is this work called?
It's called family constellation or systemic constellations.
And is it based on psychology?
Kind of a mixture of how best to describe it. It's been associated with like psychodrama, psychology, but it taps into the energies of systems and the relationships between things. So it could be, the most common thing was obviously family relationships, and it's a body of work that was discovered by Bert Hellinger in Europe, and he just observed a tribe. I can't remember where the tribe was, about how they would deal with situations. And so the body of work developed from there, and it basically looks at you have a person who has an issue or a repeating pattern, for example, and so try as they might, they try and resolve it, but it may have been handed down through an unseen or unconscious pattern. And so they call it the morphogenic field, or the field, the knowing field. And so once the issue has been expressed, then people or objects are used to represent key people or situations or feelings in that situation for the person. And then the field just reveals, and the representatives can just reveal. And it's interesting because that's a real kind of interesting way of looking at frequencies. Certain frequencies of emotions or hurt or things like this can have an effect in the field.
Yes.
And people feel it, people sense it. So, you know, if it's like an ancestor or great grandfather that felt like they were outed, you know, in the family and were rejected from their family, that can ripple down frequencies in the field into our own lives. So if you're carrying a frequency that was kind of
that's been passed down from generation
to generation.
Right.
Yeah. These like bad habits, you know, addiction or
or
relationships that just don't work.
Right. Or even like heart conditions or
exactly,
or blood diseases and things that are genetically passed down.
Yeah, that's a frequency patterning, right? Yes. Oh, my mum had blah blah blah, so I've got it too. It runs in the family.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah, but then, you know, they've discovered that that's actually a lie. As I'm sure that's what this course is getting people to see, is that you can change that. You do not have to access those frequencies. Yeah,
absolutely. You can choose to tune into a different frequency. Yeah, and stop the patterning. So that I find that really fascinating way of playing with frequencies.
So did they have like would they act out, talk to the energy? What I mean, and so people. So
I guess the acting out is actually then sensing. So people, again, for example, if I was playing someone's mother, I would get a sensation in my body, and it would not make any logical sense, and they'll be like, "Oh, I feel really hurt," or when I look this way, because there'll be other people or objects. When I look at that object, I feel really, unless something, whatever that is, you get this sense, and it's really interesting. So you don't have to know how to speak energy or channel, or it It's just really quite interesting
Wow.
how
So
we can tap into that. So anyone can do that. It's like tapping into frequencies. We do it all the time, probably most of us subconsciously.
right. That is correct.
Carrying around frequencies and signals, and it's like, oh, hang on, that back pain or the neighbor's hangover.
Right.
Oh, that's not mine.
Right, right. But, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna, you can't save the world. You can start with yourself, right? Start with yourself.
I didn't go out for a drink. Why have I got a hangover? Yeah. I felt like I smoked 50. Oh, no, hang on.
Right. Trust me, I just got back from Japan, and they still smoke in Japan. And so every night I would have my fan on, especially when I perceived it. Sometimes I didn't. And then I'd go to my room like, what is that? Oh, right. It's not mine. So yeah, I think it's really, really interesting just to honor, number one, that we are energy beings, and that we are plugged into not just this reality, but even beyond this reality we're plugged into, which includes our ancestors and all of our lifetimes, and
Yeah.
it goes on and on. But knowing that in this moment that you can change something, that you can choose a different frequency, and to be patient with getting to it, number one, because we all have the capacity to change, but we're also stuck in our habits, and recognizing that we have habits, or patterns or programs that are running our lives, and seeking, asking the question, what modality, or is there something that can help me with this? Because, prayer works, meditation works, access consciousness has been quite successful for both Yile and I, and sound healing, sound meditation, working with sound, singing bowls, they're quite powerful. You just got to ask for it. You got to start with an ask. You've got to start with asking, you shall receive is true. But if you don't ask and you just think that you have to continue in the same pattern, then that's where you'll stay. There's this lovely story in the very beginning of the book by Joe Dispenza, and it talks about this woman whose world completely started to crumble, quote unquote, the day her husband committed suicide. She was a therapist. She had 2 kids. And literally, it was like a chain of events, one right after the other. After he passed, the insanity of her jumping to the conclusion that, oh my God, I have to raise these kids by myself. I hate him. Why did he do this? And going back and forth with all of this stress, emotionally, physically, financially. And so she started to have physical issues. All of a sudden, she's paralyzed from like the waist down. And then she started to have these growths in her mouth. I mean, it was just like one thing after the other. And I think it was after about 5 or 6 years. And then she met another man, and he was abusive. I mean, she just went through hell. And it was like literally the chain reaction of stress and negative input, quote unquote, because that's where your thoughts stay. So she kept looping around the same, this is terrible, this is awful, my life sucks. And then you become addicted to those same thoughts, because you're used to them. They're common. It's normal that I'm worried. It's normal that I'm suffering, and couldn't break through it until one day she said, I know, I'm not going to do this anymore. No. And when she said stop, then a friend of hers had said, hey, there's this guy coming to town that I'm sure you're going to love. You just come for a few hours. You don't have to stay, but just listen to what he has to say. And luckily she followed the frequency of that and went to it. And it literally began the transformation of her life. I mean, she was very, and she stuck to it. She meditated every day. She was just like consistent, and she could walk. Everything started to heal. I mean, total remission.
Amazing. The more I go on this exploring of consciousness, as I call it, the more I'm hearing it's our choice, as we've heard from many people, choice trumps.
Yes.
Choice, the act of that. I'm done, is the enough of a, as Abram called it, launching that rocket of desiring or what you do want. It's like, okay, I don't want this anymore. Launch is that whole, okay, I'm going to do something. And it's that, okay, enough. Choice for then those frequencies to start coming through. Like you said, if we're looping this story, it's like nothing else can come in. We can't see or perceive anything else.
Right.
Until we go, okay, I'm done.
Right. And she was so connected to the external condition that she hadn't ever really considered that quiet that you were talking about earlier, that quieting down and going, that the inner world is just as vital as the outer world. And they've proven this over and over with Olympic athletes who would, like, some of them would not do anything physical and yet would have the same physical results with the control group, with the other group that did have worse doing the physical work. That our minds are ridiculously powerful. I mean, just crazy powerful. And we fall into our patterns and get comfortable. And just the act of being quiet and just looking for the quiet. And what happens in the quiet, right? What's going on? What's that bandwidth? It's like a bandwidth. That's it. So you've got your AM, your FM, you've got your satellite dish. You've got all these different bandwidths. But that bandwidth that literally accesses those frequencies, right? It's like that's where you can plug in, and then your mind can get out of the way because it's so annoying sometimes, right?
Yeah, Dave.
Like, mind, get over there.
Yeah. What you like increase that space? You say like increasing the bandwidth. Is that what you're saying? Well, yeah, just that increasing the space of possibilities of.
Yes, the bandwidth of possibilities, and that's yes.
That's interesting. The frequency of the ask. I'm just mixing up different people saying that. The example I just recently saw, someone posted on Facebook in this group saying, oh, I'm done with blah, blah, blah relationships that just are shallow. What does anyone know any dating sites? And I was thinking, my thought was about that choice, right? I was thinking, well, just the act of you going, I want an actual relationship that resonates kind of thing is what was kind of saying. Instead of flipping it around. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. So the how is quite fun. Right. So are we in allowance of how that frequency shows up?
Yes. Right. Are we trying to predetermine what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to be? And you can have an idea, but let the universe do its thing, let the frequency show up the way it's going to show up. You like, yes, how you can have an idea. I don't think that having an idea is wrong, but not to get too stuck in, well, this is how it's supposed to look, how I want it to look. Right.
Exactly. I will only find these types of guys or girls on this platform because they're spiritual. For example, in this example, it was like, I only want spiritual people. And it's like, what does that kind of negates what those that are spiritual but not on the website kind of thing. But it's what you're saying about following that. Then it's like following in that frequency and go, you know what it feels like, or the sense of what that frequency may be, and when it shows up, it's like it may not compute, but the feeling and the sensation is like, oh, but it feels really light, but I don't like brandy. Why should I have whatever? What's going through my head at the moment? And I'm plucking that out of the ether.
Right.
People drinking brandy out there.
That's gotta be. Then you have the date where you have brandy and then you have brandy. Okay, sorry. My. This research or this lovely awareness of frequencies, because there are so many beautiful frequencies. It's like the analogy of the buffet, right? You've got all of these amazing choices. You've got the colors, the smells, the flavors, and you keep going to the same section of the buffet table. That's that ingrained habit, and never willing to try anything different, because what if in finding something different you find yourself so I guess my thing would be to everyone, try, open your world to different things. Get out of your habits on purpose, like literally take a different street, or when you're coming home from work,
go to a different meetup.
Right.
I've never been before.
Right, exactly. Just to change up your brain capacity, because our brains are very limited. They only can work with what they know, and if you go beyond that, you have to go inside too. You just can't be an external person. It's just not conducive to more, which doesn't mean that, like he has a meditation, walking meditation. There are walking meditations. There are meditations where you can be alert and have your eyes open. There's that. But there still has to be some internal time to connect to frequencies that are not seen with or felt with our senses. They're felt with our internal.
And there's just so many different ways you can, I guess, tune into that. I remember when I was beginning to meditate, I found it really difficult. So I think just things like, I think it's really common now, but the coloring in just kind of gives that activity, and it just drops you into a different state of awareness.
Right. That's why toning is good too. It gives you something to do.
Yeah.
Gives your brain something to do, and then eventually you stop thinking because the sound takes over. So that's like my first go-to is to tone, and then I go or I allow certain music as well. Music has tons of frequencies and beautiful harmonics. Harmonics are like the after ripple of sound. They're like echoes of sound. So those are also very healing.
Yes.
And the rhythm, the sounds. And because every piece of music that is made is all the people that are participating in a song contribute to that energy of that song. So that's something to be aware of when you're listening to something. Oh, what is that? Something about a frequency of a sound. It could be classical music. It could be country music. It could be jazz. It's just something like, oh, those are like almost like little gifts of frequency. When your whole body goes, whoop, what's that?
Well, interesting. Coming back to I don't know if you've been following or reading anything about I'm sure lots of people that are watching this about the 440 versus 432, and I kind of, I guess, go back to what Jonathan says, the frequency plus intention part, because I kind of, I've seen people doing tests where they play the guitar and tuned into 432 and those into 440. I don't know if you've come across it.
Yes.
And what awareness or points of view you have around it, or tested it yourself.
A question of taste, really. It's like, what works for you? Does that sound like, I personally love my 432 bowls. I think that they're very rich in sound. There's something that they do for me. I also have been to a meditation where the bowls were tuned at 440 and they were lovely. I mean, it's not like I would, kick them out of my bed. You know what I'm saying? They were very, very comfortable. But personally, I prefer the 432 for meditation and things like that. And actually, you can listen to the music that you like. I think there's an app. I don't know if it's Audacity or there's another app, but you can switch your music to 432. Or maybe even on a Mac, on the Apple, is it Logic Pro? Logic Pro, yeah. You can switch your regular music to 432. So if you really are keen on maybe even doing an experiment, you could see if the music that you love at 440, because most music is at 440, if you put it at 432, would it change for you?
Wow, how do they do that? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how because it's just a change, and it's so slight though. It's really small because I have played on my keyboard. I'll put it in 440 and then I'll put it in 432. And the difference is so minute. But I guess it's
well,
just...
that's it. I guess I mention it because I know that a lot of people will be, I know a lot of people ask for it. And then I'm curious. Like I don't feel I have a preference. But it's interesting to know those that do have a preference, what it is they think that is about.
Right.
And whether that's a sensory thing, or there was something else.
Right. You know, it's a great question. I really do think that you got to experience it and see what works for you, because it's all about what works for you. And
yeah,
maybe a song that you really love, when you hear it in 432, you won't like it. I don't know.
Yeah. And is it about the song or the actual frequency?
Yeah, I think it's like so much multi-layered, doesn't it?
Because there's so many elements in that. There's like the frequency of the people that were being played it. Like, was it their what you're sensing from them?
Right. Right. Exactly.
What mood they were in.
Yes. 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 And how about songs, for example, in soundtracks, songs that they bring back from like the 50s and they bring it to today, and then it's this big hit. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the frequency, that frequency was earlier, that they were already projecting into a future frequency? A future where that frequency would be more acceptable? Isn't that funny to just like, you could just like,
I know
this concept for forever.
But it's like, I guess the chef cooking food, he cooks the same food, but then on days if he's a little bit off, or she, and then you kind of can taste it. Well, I don't know. Some people are like, oh, the food's a bit off today. It's like, yeah, he's in a bad mood.
I think it does affect the food. You can tell a restaurant when people are happy and that there's a feeling of prosperity and abundance, and then when you go into a restaurant where people are struggling, you can taste it.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah. So people, be aware of what you're transmitting. What transmission are you giving today?
But yeah, it's interesting if you deliver the same speech or the same content, and it, yeah, the source of the vibe, the source of frequency.
Right. Yes. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time. That was a great conversation. Thank you, Yile. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm sure we can talk more about this.
Thank you, Karen.
We are just going to drop this in the bucket. I believe that we might be producing a book from our conversations. So we're just throwing it out there, dropping the seed so that frequency can grow. But we're just dropping it out there because we really do have some amazing conversations, and there's a lot of people who are looking for this information, and perhaps this frequency is what they're willing to receive. So we're shooting for them. Alrighty, so it's been wonderful, my dear. I will see you next month for our conversations in sound. Sounds good to me? Sounds good to you?
It sounds good to me. Thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate it.
I adore you. I love you. You take care of yourself and stay warm. We're moving into spring, so it's actually our temperatures are probably very similar right now. Yeah. So enjoy the shifts and changes.
Sure.
They're going on. Those frequencies are pulling us everywhere. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording. Goodbye, everybody. See you.
Bye.
Woohoo.